on a warm but overcast day here in the UK, in the Midlands. In North Gloucester today at Batsford Arboretum, and just enjoying some of the lovely maples they have on show. So first port of call, just an Atropopareum really. I say just, absolutely lovely. Here we are in the UK, mid-July now. Doesn't feel like July in a way in terms of there's no sunshine, but lovely red leaves, nice, very tree-like upright stance. And indeed, if I just pan over here, you'll see another one. So even though these are, because these are seedlings in a sense, they're not sort of particular cultivars, I think they're quite different. The habits can be quite different. I mean, all trees are subject to sort of the way nature kind of works on them and different circumstances and where they landed and all the rest of it. But in this case, I think Atropopareum can be really quite different. So here we have one of my favourites. I do say that a lot, I must admit, but it's Acer griseum. We'll zoom in on there. As you can see, it's called the paper bar maple, and with good reason. So very unusual, lovely peeling bark. I'll be honest, I think the leaves are okay, but they're not perhaps quite so interesting as some other maples. But that's not what we're here for really. This lovely sort of reddish, pinkish sort of browny bark that just looks fantastic, peeling away there. And this place has affiliations with Batsford Arboretum, which has got some of the original ones brought in from China over 100 years ago. So certainly this will be one of the descendants of that. So there we have Acer griseum, the paper bark maple, just looking lovely. And here we have a classic Acer, Sangukaku. And what I love about this is that it just loves sun actually, which is not characteristic for some Acers. It's lovely to go out and see these very large older specimens of these. And as you can see, the bark itself isn't the classic sort of coral bark, pink bark that you see on many of these, but actually the foliage at the ends has turned sort of a nice shade of pinky red, which is just lovely. And what you'll see in the sort of early spring is that the new growth on it, on the very extremes, is actually a slight red colour. So always sort of good to see what your trees are going to look like in the fullness of time really. And again, this fellow's planted in 1960. So it's even older than me, which is becoming really a rarer thing these days, but good to enjoy the habit. I mean, if you're planting these things in your garden, this is what you'll end up with. And it's really very much a sort of upturned vase. It sprawls into the air and it's quite dense branches really. But yeah, just a lovely example of Acer Sangukaku. So another Acer here called Acer reticulatum, and I think if we get close to some of the leaves we can see why. It's got this very sort of reticulated or variegated form, and that's quite lovely. The leaves have just got that extra interest about them other than just being green. Habit wise, again, starts off sort of upright but is quite leaned over, so it's quite a bushy sort of tree really. It's interesting to see how this has grown as well, because the one side is much more exposed to light over here, where the other backs onto another tree, so it seems to have grown towards the light over many years really. So nice Acer, lovely how that with time they just get more interesting. The sort of lichen you can see on the branches is just lovely really. But another great example, sort of the tree that you see often in garden centres, these little reticulated leaves and stuff, but very rare to see one out in the wild. And there we go, let's have a little zoom in on that. Acer reticulatum. So another one here on show, Acer linearlobum. Basically, a sort of rather different style leaf, which I really enjoy actually. You can get sort of green, red variants of these. But as you can see, the leaves are very, very strap-like. They're sort of a palmate leaf taken to extremes where there's sort of nothing between them. So they're really kind of dainty and quite interesting, really. And as I said before, lovely to see one out in the wild, because I've got these, I've seen them, I bought them from sort of my favourite maple nurseries, etc. But it's really, really unusual to see one out in the wild. It's interesting that it's called a linearlobum, which is almost like a generic name for these, rather than a particular cultivar, which we'll hopefully come to soon actually. But again, this is an immense tree. If I just zoom out, you can see that it's a very considerable size, but many years in the growing, really. This is a very old, well-established place, and again, these things have had a chance to really sort of grow and put on growth over many years. But yeah, just lovely to see a linearlobum style leaf, but actually out in the wild. Really nice here at Batsford as well, just to note some of the bamboo plantings. So they're not just big on acers, but bamboos too. And I think it's a very interesting species, and I get to gradually understand it better. As I understand it, this grows to a given height within a season, then stops, and then new shoots grow again within sort of 3 or 4 months the following year, maybe slightly longer. But you've got that there at that height, and then behind me, Spectabilis, which is much taller. So it's great to sort of plant this and know how high it's going to grow, and then use it as required in the garden. Another bamboo here actually, Yashadeg, looks like. So again, compared to the ones previously shown, just looks so different. I'll just go wide on that second. A really sort of bushy, very compact, very dense base, but a bushy top. So again, such a different species compared to this one, really. But all adding to the sort of Japanesey feel to a degree of this garden. So very nice. Obviously, for those that don't know, you've got clumping bamboos which stay very much in control like this, and you've got ones that spread. And in the garden, you just need to be really careful which ones you pick, because the spreading ones can land up going absolutely everywhere. But chosen carefully, I think bamboo can really offer something to a Japanese garden. So here we have Tsusumo Beni, and this dates back to 1996 according to that label. And yet, what a difference. So if I just back off down here slightly and go wide, that's, in quite a few years, the tree's only that big. So, you know, quite a mature specimen. I mean, it looks really healthy. I'll just go close on the leaves as well. So mostly we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lobes. Lovely size, and they've still got this sort of little characteristic bit of colour just on the ends actually that you see on this particular cultivar. So another great example of, you know, seeing these things in their native situation and having put on a bit of growth, even in the ground. This one's quite manageable. So another one to think about. Once again, another classic red pygmy. Haven't got this one, probably should get one. It's one of these linearlobum, very sort of lacy leaf ones here. Does show that even though it's called pygmy, over enough time, it will gain some height. It's not enormous, but it's certainly put on some growth. And interesting again in this location that where it's really shady, it's very green. But then moving over here, it's redder. So a lot of these red cultivars do enjoy having some sun. Obviously too much can be a problem, but in general they do enjoy it. So they will go a little bit green as the season progresses, but still lovely. So that's red pygmy. So in real contrast to some of the smaller cultivars, you've got this fella here, which I've immediately gone wide angle on because this is quite a big tree. And again, they all change over time. So this one internally has a really open structure, which is lovely. So it doesn't intimidate you because you can see straight through the branches. Its habit's very different to some. And the leaves themselves are really quite interesting. They are kind of little acer leaves, but kind of serrated, which is kind of another variant that you see. And relatively delicate and relatively small, really. And noting the fact that each leaf it's connected right at the end. So it's another sort of genetic variant that's available. So again, lovely tree, many years old, but nice for a sort of canopy type effect and shading, really. Very nice indeed. No trip here would be complete, really, without a little view of Kota no Ito. One of my absolute favourites. If you watch some of my other videos, I'm sure you've seen this. And just a note, it's kind of reassuring that, like mine, the new growth is quite big leaves, which somehow mysteriously get thinner and smaller as the growth ages. In terms of structure, in terms of how it looks, very upright vase-like. But medium size, not enormous, but just a very, very nice tree. Apologies for the noise, but this is a kind of working place, things are going on. And it's really well maintained, Batsford Arboretum, actually, so well worth a look. And just highlighting actually that this year, whether it's because of weather conditions or not, but many of these and my own cultivars have developed their samaras, their seeds, which can be a bit unusual actually. But it's interesting because I think some trees look really nice when they're small and they look really nice when they're large and in the middle and all between, really. I think this is one of them. It's quite open inside, but quite dense. It's in the right location and just looks absolutely lovely. So this particular cultivar, it says 96 at the front, so there seems to be a few planted in 96, so I guess that's the planting date. This is really interesting to me because I actually own this tree and didn't realise, in the sense that I've seen it here before, but didn't sort of pick up how interesting it was. But completely forgetting that it's actually here to see, went and bought one. So I have a tiny version of this. And mine in particular has got these little serrated leaves, which is why it sort of initially thought, hang on, I've seen that before, it looks a bit familiar. And then lo and behold, there's the tree. So if I'm in any doubt what it's going to look like in many years, 25 years, probably, certainly outlive me probably, there we are. Not huge, open structured, but quite interesting because some branches do grow from the base and outwards. So sort of spreads a little bit, but not intrusively so, which is lovely. And once again, lots and lots of seeds. Not sure why. One theory I've heard is that because, you know, it was a very wet start of the year or the conditions weren't brilliant, the trees sort of thought, well, hang on a minute, I could be in trouble here, so let's make some seeds and reproduce myself. Whether that's true or not, don't know. If you think so, leave some notes in the comments, that'd be interesting. But certainly a good year, and even some of the quite immature trees I've got have produced these, so there's definitely something going on there. So another cultivar, looks like it's certainly planted in 96. So that must have been a lot of replanting going on there. If we just pan out slightly, Poison nishiki, and this is a bit butterfly-like and absolutely gorgeous. So despite being quite an old tree, it's got a really large number of these sort of nicely sort of variegated twisting leaves with like lighter parts on them. Now sometimes you will see that on particular branches things can change and sort of revert back a little bit on this kind of tree. So it's quite interesting. It's almost like two different trees together, but in the bulk of it, it's retained its very interesting leaf colour and structure. So really liking that one. Again, another sort of typical genetic variant that comes in different forms, but quite a dense tree, grows a lot from the base. It's like a giant shrub almost, a big ball of leaves, which is lovely, but very, very different to ones you can sort of walk under, and they're much more open structured. So I really hope you're enjoying the content of these videos. If you are, if you could like and subscribe to the channel, that would be fantastic. And please hit the notification bell as well, because that way you'll know when I upload more. I'm really, really pleased with how things have progressed, and this little channel sort of growing quite nicely, really. So thanks for all those that subscribed already, and a special thanks to all those that ask questions or, you know, have ideas. And please let me know if you want any more different content, because we can do that. And I hope to see you soon in another video. Cheers.